Welcome to the Stories Are Soul Food podcast, presented by Cannonball Books, the kids' fiction imprint of Cannon Press.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
So welcome to SASF number 88.
Yeah. Ocho.
Ocho-ocho. Double ocho. What are we talking about today, Brian?
Well, people want to know what your favorite novel is.
That's
Just
rude.
quick.
That's rude.
No.
It's also super easy. It's That Hideous Strength.
Yeah, but now they want to know what your favorite novel is by a living novelist.
Well, C.S. Lewis is alive.
Yeah.
But he's more truly alive than he ever was.
Okay, all right. We're in normal language zone. So C.S. Lewis is dead. Let's be clear. But alive.
But more truly alive.
Okay. How about on this earthly plane, this veil, mortal coil, all that sort of
in brackets, sucks on teeth.
We do
man.
need a subtitle.
Favorite novel from a living author. That's tough.
I know you assigned some.
Yeah.
But tough is a high standard.
Tom Wolfe died. So he's out. And yeah, I'm scrolling through the obituaries. Favorite novel.
I mean, what do you think about Marilyn Robinson?
She doesn't make my top 5.
Leaf Anger.
Yeah, he does. I'm kind of bouncing between. So here's the deal. I would say that Beautiful Ruins is up there.
Okay. Jess Walter.
Yep. Beautiful Ruins is up there, and that is not an endorsement of all the content. I quickly add. Sure.
There's no clear play for books.
Yeah, there's no clear play. There's just skip, move on. Beautiful Ruins and Peace Like a River are up there.
Wow.
From living authors.
Okay, nice. I've been reading actually.
Although I really like Evangellyfish.
And your father.
I gotta say, my dad's novel, Evangellyfish, is magnificent.
Well, I mean, we have to thump the words for a little bit. The fact that it was novel of the year for Christianity Today, that's
it's really funny.
It's a good one.
It's really good. Evangellyfish is really good.
Yeah.
So,
and I haven't
read it in a while, so I should swing back through. It's great.
Yeah.
But
character wise, is that why it's great?
It's a great lesson for. I like making people read it because it's a great lesson in how to write using the architecture of a story. And I've tried to help young writers learn how to steal architecture from biblical stories. And because Jellyfish is a Jonah story, where you say, okay, it's a Jonah story. We're going to follow the beats. We're going to follow the structure of Jonah, but we're going to take those beats and put them in an entirely different situation. So you have a Baptist pastor who is Jonah, and you have a megachurch pastor named Chad Lester who is Nineveh. Like
all on his lonely.
Yeah, he represents Nineveh. He's the one guy that this Baptist pastor does not want to help and does not want to see saved and does not want to preach to. It's like, no, Lord, anyone but Chad Lester. I will not help Chad Lester. And so the whole thing plays out following the beats, the various beats of Jonah story. And you can find all that. So is it an allegory? No, it's not allegorical. It's architecturally stealing the structure of Jonah. And so that's something I've really encouraged a lot of young writers to do and novelists early in their career when they are trying to figure out something. I have a setting, I have a character, I've got the seed of a plot that I really, really like. And I just can't quite figure it out. And it's like, well, what to do? It's like, well, if you're an architect, you decide at the outset, like, are you building a colonial? Are you building, what are you doing? Something neoclassical? Where are we? Like, what are you actually executing? What kind of architectural style are you trying to execute? And it really helps a lot for a novelist to find the skeletal structure of something ancient, classic, true. And when you find something true, and I say true, meaning scripture, I'm going to tell a Samson story. I'm going to tell an Exodus story. I'm going to tell a prodigal son story. I'm going to tell, one of these stories. I'm going to tell a Messiah story. But you don't just have to go to the messianic. You can go to a David story, a Joseph story. You can go to a Joseph and Potiphar's wife story, a Joseph and his brother's story. You can go to all these different kinds of structures, grab one of those structures and pull it in. An Esther story, Ruth story, Rahab story, and then recast it in modern day. And you're not telling the story of Rahab. You're not
That's
trying to.
the distinction I think people miss.
Yeah, you're not telling the story of Rahab. You're telling the story of Tiffany, and she's not a harlot in Jericho.
Right.
She is you're telling a story of a girl's move and loyalties from one side to the other side, and becoming critical and key in really righteousness and salvation of the whole system. So like you're going to take those beats and you're going to take that structure and you're going to execute it that way. You can do it with things like Shakespeare's plays. You can do it with novels where you take the architecture of something, and it's not a retelling. That's a different deal. You could also say, if this is a retelling, this is Pride and Prejudice, but with zombies. That's a retelling. I'm talking about the architecture, the kind of thing that people could read and never know. And it would be just as excellent without their knowing. But then someone intelligent reads it, somebody more intelligent reads it and realizes it, and just adds an extra layer of joy when they discover that architecture. It's like another layer where they go, oh, wow. And it's also not necessary. It's just really, really helpful early when you're training your own narrative instincts to take a structure that has worked. It's a reliable structure. This is engineering that is good. This is narrative engineering that has worked. It's held up. It's solid. And I'm going to pull it over and follow it.
Now, is it possible that when you say narrative architecture, I think people hear you saying plot points, but really it's like Jonah the person, right?
Plot points, but think about overarching movements.
Okay.
So not plot points so much as the dance. Like the relationship movements, meaning like there's I talked about who are you, who are they, and all those things. Think of those relationships. Like, there's people here, there's people there, there's people here, and these are the movements. So not the plot points, but the overarching moves where you have if you're telling an Esther story, there would be a move from this girl. There'd be a girl, obviously, and she's going to be moving from outcast into inner ring power broker, right? Displacing someone. And there's going to be, in doing that, absolutely playing a critical role in saving the outcast group that she came from, and doing so with an enemy in that court. So like, okay, so there's going to be an enemy, there's going to be an outcast group, there's going to be an inner ring, a royal ring, and you're going to these movements are going to happen. So yeah, there's going to be plot points that trigger those movements, but you're not establishing the plot points. The plot points become inevitable as a result of the movements. So what movements they must happen. These movements must happen. And so it enables an aspiring novelist to then go and realize, to uncover that they need plot points, which ones they need and what must be triggered, instead of sitting around being like, I wonder what should happen, because they don't have a bullseye. So if you borrow the architecture of an ancient story or a biblical story or a classic work of literature, pieces of Treasure Island, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just did this. So I pitching one of my favorite old ideas for a Christmas movie, and it's the last Christmas sweater, right? So it's this big madcap farce, and I actually said so I'd want to steal some of the architecture of Treasure Island. It's like, okay, so there's no overlap.
Yeah,
there's no apparent overlap in genre or anything. Now, what did I mean by that? What I meant is okay, well, there's going to be somebody.
Do you need the Long John Silver character? Is that?
No, it was more about the trigger of a Billy Bones character who flees. It's like, so the nature of the movements would be a Billy Bones character. And I did this in Ashtown. I've done this before in the Dragon's Tooth. And I just named him Billy Bones, William Skelton. If you have a character who flees a group, right? And he has taken Flint's map. He's taken the thing. So you have a character with a thing that is prized, and he's fled the group. The usual outlaw renegade group. Yep. And he, in fleeing it, is being pursued by his old allies, and they're going to kill him. But before he's killed by his old allies, he has handed this off to our new protagonist.
Christmas story,
right? So in that exchange, those are movements.
Right. So that helps your opening have.
And like, okay, so these are movements. And like in these movements, that's Treasure Island. Those are the movements of Treasure Island. And so I want to take the movements of Treasure Island. I want to use it here. And I could do that in a lot of different places, and people just recognize it as classic, and they wouldn't, especially if you dress it up in a completely different genre, they wouldn't just think Treasure Island.
Right.
Yeah, it does. They need the decor of Treasure Island to recognize Treasure Island.
If you don't put a skull and crossbones, they're not going to pick it up.
Yeah. So if you do what I did in The Dragon's Tooth and you name him Billy Bones, if you name him William Skelton, and you give him the skeleton tattoo, and you have him being pursued, and I've got the Admiral Benbow Inn is the Archer Motel, and I have a Long John Silver character, and I'm really jumping up and down on it, then people figure it out. But then I also hybridize it in Dragon's Tooth, and it starts to exchange, like where we start to move into, okay, here's the themes of Cyrus, here's Antigone, and each of the characters actually have their own classic architecture. So Antigone has her movements that are representative of the ancient Antigone, and Cyrus of Cyrus the Great, and but we still have the opening of Treasure Island, and you navigate those things. In this, what I'm describing here is once you've set these movements, you now have a bullseye. I need a plot point that triggers the movement. The movement must be triggered. I can't just impose the movement. It's like it has to be triggered, and that enables the creativity. What you mean is
you can't just have Cyrus go off on his own on an adventure, without setting it up something to happen.
He just wakes up one day and it's like, I think that I'm going
to
go
try adventure. To find a secret society that Dad.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have these different inciting incidents, these different catalysts that actually trigger things. And until you've set your movements, and until you've set what the architecture is, you can't really even measure which inciting incident, which plot point, what we would call a plot point, is the right fit. Like which one's right, because you haven't picked your bullseye yet. The bullseye is the movement. And so this one will get me to that bullseye. This is right. This shoe fits. This thing is right for this particular this particular move. So early on, especially when people are trying to design stories or plan stories, I think it's extremely helpful to think in terms of imitating the architecture, narratival architecture from classics, from scripture, and so on. I don't remember how we got onto this.
Well, we were talking to Jonah.
Yeah. My favorite novel. So Peace Like a River, beautiful ruins. The architecture of beautiful ruins is one of the reasons why I really admire it.
Interesting. I enjoyed his writing quite a bit in that one. I've read it. Not as much. I didn't enjoy his writing in some of the other ones, but he's way more historical in some of the other ones.
Yeah. So the nature of that, he was writing multiple different novels and then realized that they were all part of the same thing. He realized that he was doing something different. And if you read his earlier novels, they're kind of rushed. Everything's clipped. Everything's quick. Mm-hmm. And that one is very symphonic, like just in structure and how it moves
over
across
lifetime,
over 50 years for this structure.
Yeah.
And following all these different characters in different ways. And it's similar in that way to like Anthony Doerr in terms of scope. And I just think that Jess, I think he managed it better. I think he paid off. He delivered on the promise of the premise better than Anthony Doerr did.
Yeah.
So as much as I like Anthony Doerr's,
all the light you cannot see. Yeah.
I like All the Light You Cannot See, but there's so many things he promises on, and there's so many interesting setups. that don't quite ever come to pass. They don't ever deliver there.
Yeah,
where Jess in Beautiful Ruins really does.
Yeah, with Beautiful Ruins, I guess what is that underlying structure? I guess it's prodigal, sort of. That son trying to come back and find his meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
It is very Solomonic. It's all brokenness, and it's redemption and brokenness, and he's got, pieces of the answers. Like he's got pieces of hope. He's got little glimpses of it.
Yeah.
It's not a book that's just like, yep, here's the truth.
Right. Well, yeah, I just read Cold Millions, and which is his historic novel of Spokane, and I felt even bleaker.
No, I didn't finish Cold Millions.
Okay.
I've got it. It's not that I won't. Kobe Bryant said there's no such thing as failure because there's always tomorrow. You only failed on a Monday.
There you go. You haven't finished yet.
So I haven't finished Cold Millions yet.
Reminds me of The Simpsons when Homer says, "This is your worst day so far."
So far. So I haven't finished Cold Millions because I found pieces of it really interesting, but it was like, oh, this is
yeah.
And Beautiful Ruins has aspects of that. There's aspects of clear despair in there. But there's also pieces of Ecclesiastes in there. And I think there's warmth and hope. There is hope.
Well, Cold Millions got energized when you met the bad guy, which was about halfway into the book, I think. It just took so long. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's the story.
Yeah.
With Beautiful Ruins, also, I remember the Hollywood descriptions being hilarious. And I wondered if that is true. Is that what Hollywood is like?
I actually, his descriptions of Hollywood, I died. I mean, I completely and absolutely died.
It's like a pitch meeting with a guy in his bathrobe. Right?
He's shuffling around, hunched over, and he turns around and has the face of a 10-year-old Filipino boy because of all the plastic surgery.
Yes, that's right.
But it's I was in this meeting almost exactly. I mean, it's
okay. Wow.
And I told him, I told Jess that it's like, I feel like I actually know the same people. I know who you're talking about. Like, I actually know who you're describing. Like, I know it was hilarious to me because it was not, it was not fiction. It was based on real people that I have also met.
And was it a good description?
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, I mean, enough that I was like, oh, Jess.
Is that too much on the nose?
I was like, wow, it was magnificent. But yeah, so that book, though, it's bleak. It has plenty of bleakness. I don't want to pretend like.
Well, that's probably a helpful conversation. People ask all the time, how much is too much? Or, which seems like, I mean, a question you do have to ask about a novel. Like, should I be reading one? I think that one has a couple sex scenes in it.
There's things in there to this book. Flipping the page.
Right.
It's like skipping. It's like you don't need to like let your imagination be led into certain places. Like you have control. Like you're still in control when you're when you're reading things. But Peace Like a River is just glorious, and Beautiful Ruins is incredibly impressive. And so I think that it's one of my favorites because it's aspirational. It's a book that I look at and I'm like, yeah, this is it's really, really good and really impressive. And I've got all my inland Northwest loyalty to that Spokane author. But yeah,
and you've met Jess.
Yeah. And I read it. The book blew up. It exploded. It really took off. And
isn't it it was a number one, right?
It was huge. And I read it early on. He came through Moscow. He was downtown Moscow, and I met him then and read the book and emailed him immediately, with a lot of thoughts and he's super impressive. So regardless of worldview divergence, which there's plenty of.
Yeah. He also seems to do Spokane hate better than anybody I know. You're just like, you've got Spokane, like, and you live there, so it's coming from a place of both love and hatred.
Yeah, no, it's
the grossness.
So
of
that
the
one,
city.
Peace Like a River and Beautiful Ruins are up there from living authors. They're the two.
Why not Marilyn Robinson?
I feel like the burden of proof is on the other side.
Well, no,
she's obviously talented.
I'm curious what I have my own thoughts. Gilead, for example, I'm guessing that pastor is very different from your dad. And in that sense, part of it, it made you want the pastor to act very differently than he did. But I don't know if that's correct.
Ready for a true confession?
Okay.
I don't think I finished Gilead. I think I stopped like 15 pages from the end or so.
Well, you haven't finished it.
Yes. It's like, but I don't remember where I had kind of
I mean, there's no story.
I was mad. I have sort of an impression of anger.
Okay.
And I was just like walked away. And I don't even remember. There's kind of a fuzzy blackness that I have there around the memory there. So I don't even want to, I'd have to, in order to speak more clearly about it. And maybe this is an example of like, okay, I have to go be a grown up and read it and read it all the way through in a neutral and objective way. Just like I watched 5 minutes of Rings of Power.
Neutral and objective are the hashtags of the show.
Propaganda recently tweeted an image, speaking of Rings of Power, of Lord of the Rangs. That was all the characters replaced with
hood characters
with black actors, and I immediately thought I would 100% watch that more than I would watch Rings of Power.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, it's Marilyn Robinson has never ever been able to get me. It's always been, and I've read things of her, and I've read enough to know that she's good.
Yeah.
You know, she's good. But I always feel like she's trying to make me eat a scone in her kitchen without the heat on. And like while serving me tepid tea.
I should say I really like Marilyn Robinson. So maybe I'm just that guy who's like, this tea is just the right lukewarm.
Just tepid enough. And again, I first formed that impression at a fairly young age. So this could be the prejudice of youth that I just need to go back and give her a fair shake.
Well, it is.
I have read things of hers that I admire and sections.
Yeah.
Annie Dillard's like that. I really do like. I have Annie Dillard and Marilyn Robinson in the same, the same general category.
Okay.
In my head, it's like
I think I've insulted you before because I said Annie Dillard will remind you of Nate. My students all agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think stylistically.
Yeah. There's things
clearly have.
Yeah. There's technique. Like there's technique that I've learned from Annie Dillard. No question. But in terms of content, like there's form, like there's a form technique that I've gotten from her, but there's a content divergence.
Yeah.
That I think that, and this could be completely unfair, but in my silo in my head, I have them kind of closer together than they are to me.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, Marilyn Robinson doesn't do chapters. It's just kind of long meditations that never stops.
Yeah.
And I can see that.
More tepid tea.
Yeah. It's, tea at least. It is interesting too that she's rewritten the same story 3 times.
Yeah.
The last one I couldn't finish. So I don't know. Maybe I've had too much tea.
I honestly, just the conversation's making me think, when did I form this prejudice? And I need to potentially rethink this.
This is probably 15-year-old Nate.
Yeah. No, it would have been probably like 19, 20.
Right.
So before I'd really even written anything myself, I should probably go back. I mean, I have read enough of her to make other people read her.
Right.
It's like
that should well be taken.
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah, you can learn from anybody. We're talking favorites.
But she is very talented.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that she's not talented. This is about taste.
Yeah.
Like she is very, very talented.
Yeah.
And so it is very taste based.
The coldness of what's it? Housekeeping. Is that her story with multiple suicides and a train wreck?
Yeah,
that's the I think your cold description is probably fair.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a cold kitchen and there is some morning light in the window, but it's a very cold kitchen and just turn the heat on, please.
Well, I remember being very disappointed when Obama was like, my favorite author is Marilyn Robinson. And I was just like, you can't have her, but I guess you can because you're way more famous than me.
I don't know. Is he?
Huh?
Is he more famous than you, Brian?
Well, last time I checked.
Yeah. Well, Marilyn Robinson doesn't make my top 5, but that I know that's a taste thing. I know she's highly skilled.
Yeah.
It's no knocks to skill. It's kind of like watching a filmmaker where they are very, very good. It's just the stories they choose to tell are not the stories that I like to consume.
Is this the time to talk about Terrence Malik?
Yeah.
I view him as the movie version of Marilyn Robinson.
Yeah. So yes.
Just tons of disparate elements. And there are themes that come through when you watch the whole thing. But
did I watch all of Tree of Life? I did.
There you go.
Was some of it profoundly laughable? It was.
Are there dinos in that?
Yeah. There's a dino benediction that jumps the shark. Thoroughly. And it should make the list of things so jumping the sharks from Happy Days.
Yeah.
That when the Fonz literally jumps a shark in a boat.
It's taken as the sign the show had ended.
Everything's gone way too far and this is all broken. Jumping the shark is going too far. Nipples on the Batsuit. Never put nipples on the Batsuit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was the Val Kilmer
mistake.
Batman, I believe. Never put nipples on the Batsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Jump the shark. Nuking the fridge.
Indiana
Jones and
Jones,
the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, when he survives a nuclear blast by jumping in a refrigerator and shutting the door after him.
I forgot, but that movie was already.
Yeah, nuke the fridge. So it's like you have nuking the fridge, jumping the shark, nipples on the Batsuit. And then I think Terrence Malick hits it with a dinosaur benediction.
I don't even remember why those are in there. I just remember it happens in the middle of the movie. And if you complained that didn't come at the beginning of the movie because that would be chronologically significant, you knew people told you didn't get the movie. So
yeah, so that having one dino dying on the ground, another dino runs by and pauses and puts his claw on his head.
I forgot
and gives a
little
benediction to the dying dinosaur, then runs off. And I'm like, we put that with the nipples on the Batsuit. It was bad. But I will say about Tree of Life, there are things I admire about it. Same deal with plenty.
Totally.
But the thing I admire the most about it is the unflinching monotony.
Okay, dude. Okay, Nate.
No, I mean really. So
I like that movie. I don't love it, but
no, I mean this, and I actually do admire this. so
this is incredible. This blurb has got to go somewhere.
So, my girls were just telling me one of the things that they find funniest about the men in their family is that we have the ability to amuse ourselves and only ourselves. And to just laugh, to tell a terrible joke and just laugh. And it doesn't matter how many people are around us who think it's not funny and are telling us it's not funny. We find it funny. And the fact that they don't find it funny makes it funnier. It makes it so much funnier to us. And so my son is this way, and I am this way, and my father is this way. And my dad's favorite joke is what happened to the girl who ate the curtains.
What happened?
She got sick. And everybody will just stare at him, and then he will die every time. And he will have a coughing fit, and he will slap his chest, and that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the thing that's funny about it is how not funny it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. I just told you a joke that's not funny. It's ha ha ha. And you all find it not funny, and you're all staring at me with this, like, that's not funny. And that's hilarious. Like creating that.
Okay, the moment.
Yeah, that the overall moment of that, their befuddlement. When you tell it to a bunch of 12-year-old kids and they all stare at you, like, and you're like, obviously, if you ate curtains, you'd get sick. And that's so funny that you told that joke.
Well,
so then you go to Terrence Malick and Tree of Life, and I think of one scene. My wife was so frustrated on the couch next to me, and it was like a planet falling into a star, falling into a sun, and just slowly, and it looked like a screensaver, and it was like literally it was moving just barely fast enough to not burn the image into our TV, but it was like,
and the soundtrack is going to be going like,
yeah, exactly. Time, and the sun is throbbing and this planet's falling slowly into it. And you're ready for it to cut away. And it just kept not. And I remember reaching a point where I just thought, yes, like just yes. Like that's magnificent.
That's curtains level, eating the curtains.
Yeah, it's like he's just like, no, watch it, darn it. This is what I'm showing you.
He's got his hand on the DP, like, hold it.
Yeah.
Hold it.
Yeah, the visual effects studio, because he didn't really film that.
I think he really filmed it.
But it's and watching this, I'm just thinking, really? Like, this is amazing. This is amazing that you're just that you have this level of commitment and confidence.
He does
to just this unflinching approach. And I will say that the absolute best thing about that film are his treatment of guilt and memory. Like the way he presents guilt and memory is fantastic. The way most people try to present flashbacks and memories are terrible, but as a filmmaker, he is really, really good at that. In terms of
those two brothers and the dad, jumping back in time, remembering when that one thing happened.
Yeah. And then also communicating the sickness of guilt over a small naughtiness. And like he just communicates that gorgeously, like just and so
of course,
truthfully.
Thematically, he's trying to say it matters, right? I mean, he's trying to put it on a cosmic scale and say it matters.
Yep.
So that is a bold move to then.
No, it's very bold. But then the whole ending with Sean Penn just walking around high in the desert.
Well, it's Mary stuff, right?
Yeah,
Virgin Mary. I think
like whatever. I mean the end. Whatever.
At that point, these Protestants tapped out.
Yeah.
As soon as I was like, "What's with the lady?" and then I was like, "Oh, blue. It's Virgin Mary."
But yeah, he's high. Sean Penn's clearly high. And
all I'm saying is Mary was there.
Yeah. So was the other Mary.
Oh, no. This episode is already
one of our best. 88 ocho-ocho.
Yeah.
But the point is that Malick, what I admired the most about Malick is his commitment. Like his absolute commitment to what he's telling and what he's doing, as opposed to what the consumer or the audience would prefer.
Right.
And I really admired that. And so,
well, I mean, did you watch
Does it go wrong? Yes.
Yeah. Did you watch his conscientious objector one?
No.
Yeah, that was 3 hours of just really intense. I mean, monotony, I guess, is probably the word now.
Unflinching monotony.
I was just like, how could you make a movie about a guy who gets killed this boring? Like, but so maybe.
Yeah. So I do,
correct.
But I really do admire. I do admire his filmmaking, and I do really admire his conviction.
And the non-linearity is sometimes really fun because it allows that connection there.
So his commitment, his conviction is always, just off the scale. So, if you want to put Marilyn Robinson over there, like, okay, she does also have conviction. She has that.
Yeah. I mean, she's published 4 novels about the exact same event.
Yep.
So
yeah,
that's some real commitment.
that's some conviction.
And they weren't all good. So.
But she's not to my taste. Overwhelmingly, but she is somebody I and others can learn from, can and should.
Yeah.
So this, for me to say she's not to my taste, is not for me to say that I'm better than she is. I think that her craftsmanship is way up there.
Yeah. No, well, the point of this episode was supposed to get into a discussion of authorial voice, but I feel like we've done that.
Yeah, so. Well, I don't know that we did, but we did something. we did some things. I will also add, I finished the first season of Cobra Kai.
Okay.
And
do you stand by the things you said in episode 87?
Yeah, I will. This is why I'm circling back to say my children and my wife, and we're just all so angry at the writers for trying to do it, for doing one thing and having one thing going one direction, and then needing, and this is something that writers do in fiction and in TV and film all the time, needing the characters to go into a different place. And so wedging them like a kid shoving a puzzle piece into the wrong hole, wedging them into the wrong direction.
Okay.
And so the end of the season, act 3 of that season, just like is a mess. At least of season 1. So the humor of the characters, so much of what they were doing was really clever. Again, filtered. And as I'm setting the filters in VidAngel is where we were watching. Actually, I watched some in ClearPlay. It's in both ClearPlay and VidAngel. As I was setting the filters in VidAngel, though, you have a little more specificity of what was going on.
And you thought,
and I thought, man, it really does need it. The filters are, especially if you're watching with a family, it's in bad need of filtration. It's too bad that they took it that vulgar.
Why do you think they did that?
Because they're trying to capture an older demo. They're trying to capture
so that they would come away feeling this is really real. Is that the vibe? Is that why you make that vulgarity in there, or is it more? They're trying to gratuitous, I guess.
They're trying to titillate. They're trying to, keep people watching, for kind of some of the shock, some of the vulgarity, some of the. I don't think they're trying to sell realism so much as there's some naughtiness here too. But it's with that out. When you pull that stuff out, there's some real wit, cleverness, contrasting, time machine elements, and they were doing something very, very cool with these two characters from the original Karate Kid, and then they just kind of fizzled. So my older kids want to at least try the beginning of season 2, but they're already kind of, it just lost for them, lost a lot. I don't know that we're gonna try anymore. I'll be searching.
Can
for
you be?
Else.
I mean, I guess it's spoiler, but can you be more specific? Like, what decision got made here that really torched things?
So one of the things that I hate is, and that they do too, is when people construct artificial ethical systems. So if you're in this particular situation, it's like, okay, so we're fighting, we're in a karate championship, right? And it's a combat sport and we're fighting. And one side has been all about karate's for defense only. And one side is all about strike first, be strong, aggressive. And in the championships, you have a kid who hurts his shoulder in the fight, but he decides to continue to try to get the championship. Then the writers want to move forward as if his opponent should therefore just from sheer courtesy not touch his shoulder. It's like, well, no, you're in a combat sport championships. It's not injure his shoulder. You're not trying to damage him. So like the original Karate Kid, the Johnny character, he like throws a shot to the knee that would have legit like be an injury shot, like damage.
Yeah.
As opposed to, his shoulder hurts.
Right.
It's like hit him in his weak spot. Like, yeah, of course. Like he could tap out if he wants to, but no, he's decided to come back in and try to take the championship from you.
I see.
With you're in a combat sport. Why is this? But then you have suddenly a system that has been debated by the season. They decide to land on the side of just like gooey niceness is honor. Honor is like, don't do that. And so
basically don't win. Or
don't win.
Yeah.
And so they take their main character, who the previous 2 episodes, they've suddenly turned into a jackass without any transition. Like he's been incredibly likable, but they need him to be going to the dark side a little bit. And they start ramming the puzzle piece of this very likable character into this dark side character. Mm-hmm. And they don't in any way earn that. And then part of the big culmination is his willingness to hit his opponent in the shoulder in the championship, it's like, but the kid is like, he's decided to come out here and try to fight. It's like, you don't get to put things off limits,
right?
In a combat sport, because it's, it hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
So it'd be one thing to say, hey, we're going to try to permanently mar him. It's another thing to hit him in his bruise. It's like, this is the way it goes. If you watch like Boss Rutan fights, he talked about the guys who would train by kicking tree trunks with their shins, 100 times each day to like deaden all the nerves of their shins and then thicken the bone. And he would do that by kicking he would do that specifically, but he would also kick the sand at the bottom of a heavy bag. So in the gym, he would just wail his shins on the sand at the bottom every day, many, many times, 100 times with each shin, enabling him to go into a fight and take somebody's femur out with his shin.
Yeah.
Like he could snap their leg like with a shin kick. And like, okay, they're getting into the ring to fight. Like they're going to fight. Now, if he starts kicking you in the femur, like you have the option, like you start getting wailed in the femur, and there's one of his famous final fights, this big heavyweight got in there and he had a bad leg. He was injured early, and he tried to come back in, and Boss just started going after his leg.
Yeah.
And the guy was intelligent enough to tap out.
He's like, I don't want,
I don't want to, okay. Like you win. Like you win because you can snap my leg and I don't want you to snap my leg. And so Boss like hugs him and, they're friends afterwards. They're like, because this is what combat sports are like. So to say, I want to fight for the championship and my shoulder hurts, so please don't touch it, is like,
yeah.
It's
what you do in sports.
Yeah. It's
take
like
advantage of the person who's not as good.
Yeah. He's, that guy's got a bad ankle. We're going that direction with the ball. That cornerback, like
he's
that,
brand new. He's a young kid.
He's a young kid. Or we just rang his bell.
Yeah.
Like we just rang his bell. He just was slow getting up. So guess who we're going after this time?
Yeah.
It's like you have to be that way. And so they impose this ethical system where he's not harming the guy. He was not trying to permanently harm the guy. Unlike Boss.
Boss is like leg.
So they had the kid who has got the bum shoulder is being honorable by walking out there and refusing to tap out and having his feelings hurt. Like really being all emotional and having his feelings hurt about how dirty the other guy is for kicking him in the shoulder. That's like, well, that right there. That's classic right now misunderstanding about how the world should work. So if you're hurt, you can tap out. If you're hurt and you want to play through it, you can play through it.
Yeah.
But what you don't get to do is take your particular little victimhood right now and weaponize it. Like, and take it out and weaponize it. And the show had shown some real insight in that exact regard through the first few episodes, and then picked the current virtue trend as the truth, as the way and the truth at the end of the season, which was infuriating my kids. And I was like, well, they do have to kind of like try to extend into the next season, and we'll, whatever, they needed to set some stuff up, but they really just felt like they were forcing it and trying to force it, and also trying to get probably licking some boots with some executives, to make it through.
You think someone could have come in and said it needs to be this way?
No, they would see the scripts, and there would have been conversations. There would have been all sorts of things,
Okay.
But they got forced. It got forced at the end, and it got forced into falsehood, into like, this is evil when it wasn't. It got forced into this kid who's very likable and is learning to be masculine is now a jackass, because that's what masculinity is. It took masculinity and it made it more inevitably toxic, and it started doing some things like that it had not been doing early on. Anyway, enough so that my kids from age 12 to age 19, the ones who watched it, were all just like, blarg. Blarg. So anyway, that's my follow-up note on
Jumping the Shark.
We were like, hey,
the beginning was fun.
Let's kind of like chip away at these short episodes. And there we go.
That's the end.
That's the end of Ocho-Ocho, Double Ocho, in which we talked about all sorts of random things. But narrative architecture. Narrative architecture. I don't know that we talked about authorial voice. Did we?
That's
at
next
all?
Week. Next week.
We didn't talk about that. So
Nate has things to say for you next week in Ocho No.
Okay.
Please say. Take it out.
You can tell that we're really good with language. Peace.
Hi, it's Brian Cole here, wanting to let you know how you can support the Stories Are Soul Food podcast. You can do that by checking out Canon Plus. Head over to mycanonplus.com. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the SASF podcast. We'll hopefully be seeing you at mycanonplus.com.
Make you